G'day boys. G'day everyone. Can everyone hear me? How we doing? Excuse me. Yawning. Is I loud and clear? Can I please get a radio check? Lickety click, lime and coke. Hi, 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 hi. We can hear ye. 5 by 5. We're in the pipe. 5 by 5. Audio is crisp. Yeah, nice. I've got them OBS filters on, you know. Just make it sound a bit cleaner. Nothing too crazy. I'm not making Barry White out of my voice or anything like that. But just something to clean up some of the background noise, removes like the air conditioning humming that you can hear in the room. Stuff like this, right? Hi, 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 hi. So, chaps, I'm going to send it straight away because I've got to try to keep this one to about an hour. I've got some stuff on. Busy man. But you know what they say, bloody excuses like assholes. Everyone's got one. But let's send it. So we're going to jump straight in. I'm not going to wait for this to stack up or get more viewers. All right, sound good. So how this works, here's a comment. First time here, what is this stream supposed to be? Says Azazm21. So how this works is, and that's a good segue to the introduction. Basically, after I'm dying, excuse me. I'll try that again. Basically, after I release a video, about a week later, I come and tend to do a live stream where I discuss the video itself, some behind the scenes stuff, and then dissect some of the comments or some of the trends or sentiments towards the video. So what people liked, what people hated, this sort of stuff. And yeah, pretty much make it a chance to have a collaborative or, you know, a live thing where you guys can jump in and have a yarn and have a chat as well. And everyone can kind of chip in. And pretty much just get my thoughts on, I suppose, the video, aside from just what I cover in the video. So that's pretty much what this is about. Hope that answers your question, Asazim21. So let's send it. Okay, so what we're going to discuss is, loosely I'm going to keep to the template of the video, which is the enemy analysis, the friendly analysis, and then the back end, which is what I'm calling it. This is going to be behind the scenes, pretty much behind the scenes, because I get a few questions related to this, as in the making of stuff, what goes on into the editing and that sort of thing. So I'm going to address some of those in this one as well. Moving forward, I'll probably keep this format going as well. So it's sort of in check with how the video progresses as well. Get what I mean? Okay, sorry, one other thing for the new viewers jumping on. I have the PowerPoint up on my screen, right? So I'm like laser locked in. I am laser focused on the slide deck. A few reasons: it keeps me in order, stops me yapping too much, kind of keeps me on track, but I can't really see the chat. So I drag the slideshow back and around on my tiny ass monitor, and then I'll go to the chat every couple of slides and I'll have a look at like what you guys are saying. Get what I mean? So it's not like super like on the spot, like, oh, you say this, I say that. Like I'm giving a presentation, right? And then I'll cut back and forth from the presentation to you guys in the chat. So it's not so bloody mixed up and discombobulated between what I'm showing and then what is going on in the chat. And one of the other reasons for that is that this becomes a vlog or a VOD. I can never remember what it's called. It becomes a video on my channel, which people can then go back and watch in hindsight. So I'm kind of trying to make it entertaining for someone who's not watching live, as well as you guys who are here as well. But that being said, thanks for joining me. Let's send it. Yeah, I know I want a bloody second monitor, but I don't have one. Says, well, ArcUp says time to invest in second monitor. So first up, chaps, the enemy situation, which was in this case the NCR, or the New California Republic. First of all, comments. Actually, it's all comments. It's entirely based on comments and trends from the comment section. One of these ones, or one of the trends, I would say it was fairly so because there were a few comments speaking to this. It was pretty much on the topic of night vision, insofar as what do the NCR have regarding their night vision capability. So Mr. Pika Gamma says, minor correction. Veteran Rangers do have access to the full abilities of their helmets. You see one use it in the intro of the game. It's a case like the Stalker games where every single helmet the player finds has a component broken while it's perfectly fine for everyone else. The Veteran Ranger helmet was supposed to have night vision, but due to time and engine restraints, They weren't able to implement it, and they were only able to get it working with the DLC armors. I hope that makes sense. So what he's getting at, if you lack the context, in the video, the way I assigned or gave them their night vision capability, I implied they would have very, very little. I believe the language I used was that on the off chance they have some of their night vision capability. And why I said that was because in my findings, so the sources for this on this note, it was mostly from what I gather from in the game, right? But then you've also got lots of your third-party stuff, your wikis, your Fallout Nuka wikis, all this kind of kit, which I know can become somewhat controversial as a source for this sort of information. But it's kind of how you use it, right? And depends, I think, on the nature of the information. But I asserted that the night vision in the game that the NCR had was found in the Desert Ranger combat helmet, not the standard Ranger combat helmet, right? That was pretty much the line of thinking I went with when I suppose was doing my enemy analysis in terms of what the kit or equipment they have is. So I deduced it would be unlikely that many of the NCR had night vision capability, based on this being my findings in the game, right? Look, with that being said, I'm not going to die on the night vision hill. Not because like it does or doesn't matter. It's more a question of of the sourcing, right? Or like citations. What am I using as or weighing in terms of accurate information from either the game or just the lore that's maybe not shown in the game but is implicit. And that's kind of a common trend as well through some of the other comments that were made perhaps in favor of the NCR and were somewhat critical of like my takes on the NCR. It's sort of a broader question on which information do you elect to use and which do you discard, or which do you give more credibility and which do you, I suppose, cite as being more accurate than other forms of information, right? And this one was a bit unique, this video, because it's a game. It's not a movie like pretty much every one of these other tactical analysis videos I've made is. So being a game, there's arguably more lore, more background than some of the movies I've covered, for example. Probably not like Lord of the Rings, obviously. But certainly say Predator, where there's not a whole lot of context you can glean just from the movie itself. Whereas in the game, when you have something like Fallout New Vegas, and particularly that it's very, I'm not sure modular is the word, but it's very moddable, has a big community behind it, and the lore of the story is massive as well, and you can get almost unlimited amount of behind the scenes context and information about character settings, everything from Fallout New Vegas. It's a very rich, I suppose, setting for a lot of the information, right? But just keep that in mind. It's kind of the why behind the why, or not the why behind the why, but I think one of the issues behind the issues that some of these commenters that I'm going to get through are getting to is kind of where do we get, which information do we use, when do we use it from the game, when do we have to use implicit information versus explicit information. That is stuff that's like very clearly stated as being the status quo or the way something is in the game versus having to make a deduction perhaps on something that they might have or would not have, but it's not said so in as many terms. I hope that makes sense. So that's kind of a preface to this comment and some of the other ones we're going to get to. I'm not sure if I read the whole thing. The Veteran Ranger helmet was supposed to have night vision, but due to both time and engine constraints, they weren't able to implement it and were only able to get it working in the DLC armors. That's another kind of theme that comes up in some of these comments, in that Rangers or the NCR did have XYZ capability, but they didn't have it because it simply wasn't in the game. And that's kind of getting back to that conversation about what I was saying with implicit versus explicit, like conversations about what is and isn't in the game. And it's a tricky balance. It's something I have to try and balance when I'm making these videos, right? Because I can't obviously just use the game, but nor can I just like draw from lore things that are contrary to perhaps what we see in the game. So it's kind of tricky, to be honest. It's very difficult to balance. But what I would say to this is, look, I'm not going to die on the hill of night vision if the veteran Rangers standard helmet does have night vision equipped. Happy for it to be so. Like, I'm not going to argue otherwise. I suppose I just want to get like where my head was at in all the research and findings that I did on this, including playing the game. And I had played it prior to making this video. I wasn't just jumping on the bandwagon now. I played it a long time ago when it first came out. I'm old. You can kind of see how there is a source as well that pretty clearly states that the Desert Ranger combat helmet is the one that has night vision, and that the Veteran Ranger combat helmet does not have night vision, because in the game you simply don't have night vision when you have the Veteran Ranger combat helmet. The other point here, he mentions the intro of the game. He's talking about the cutscene where you see like the panning out zoom shot of New Vegas. It's a video, right? It's a render. And the ranger on the wall, he like shoots, I think, a Great Khan or a Legion guy, I can't quite remember, at night, and he does like a bzoo, like the Splinter Cell sound effect, night vision. Look, guys, that I would say that cutscenes I don't think have ever been an accurate representation of any game, and I in future as well will be hesitant to cite cutscenes as a source of information, noting that they don't reflect the final product. And this is one of those things where 2 videos from now I might have cited something from a cutscene, and there could very well be someone upset that I cited a cutscene because it's not like a true, I suppose, indication of what the game has. So yeah, like I know it's in that cutscene. I haven't not seen that or not noticed that. Like I'm aware of that video. I just don't put a lot of stock into cutscenes as a credible source for in-game information, if that makes sense. And I think most of you will agree or can think of moments where cutscenes, or perhaps especially like pre-renders for prior to games releases when they come out, and then it's nothing like the actual gameplay, right? So I'm wary of cutscenes as sort of a valid source. So yeah, long story short, I didn't say that the Veteran Rangers had night vision in their combat helmet, but I'm happy to amend history, reflect the record, and say that they did. But with that being said, I'm not greatly fussed in terms of how it would impact the tactical plan from the Rangers as in the friendly perspective, for a few reasons. Firstly, even if the Veteran Rangers did have the night vision, they're a very, very, very small part of the entire NCR defensive force. So of the hundreds and hundreds of NCR personnel present at the dam, the Veteran Rangers are not that many. The numbers I think I used in my assessment, which to be frank is pretty much just made up, right? Like it's a rough assessment based on, I think they have about a battalion, so let's say 600 guys, and then break it down in here just based on the what we know about the tiers, I suppose, of their units. They're not going to have that many Veteran Rangers, night vision helmet or not. So that's the first thing. I don't really think it changes much in terms of the Rangers game plan. Second to that, these Veteran Rangers, they're not on the surface of the dam holding those positions, barring that OP they have on the hill to the rear. They're mostly underground, pulling, I suppose, VIP protection, pulling security for General Oliver. That seems to be like they're one of these. They use like their elite units to protect their VIPs, that sort of thing. So that's where you find most of the Rangers, there in the underground part anyway. It might certainly help them down there having, of course, some night vision versus no night vision, but there's not that many of them. So it's not, I wouldn't have done a whole lot, even if I had done this video again and I'd said the Veteran Rangers standard helmet has night vision. I don't see that it would have changed too much in the way of how the Rangers executed their game plan, particularly underground. I hope that makes sense to everyone. And the other question I have is, if we're saying this, we're acknowledging that the Veteran Rangers have night vision in their standard helmet. It's not just the Desert Ranger combat helmet, which is what I said in my video. How do they aim, boys? How are they aiming? Can anyone tell me? Anyone want to have a crack? I'd love to know. I'd love to know. And I'm not trying to be a smarty pants, but having the ability to see at night, as in the goggles or in this case, like the visors in your helmet, that's one thing. Being able to match that to aiming your weapon is a whole other system in and of itself. And I spoke to this a little bit in the video when I was speaking about passive versus active night fighting. The two sort of systems you have when it comes to aiming your weapon system and combining a gun with night vision. But I don't know, can anyone tell me, has anyone seen a infrared laser on any weapon system in the Fallout New Vegas universe? Because I have not. Secondary to that, is there a holographic sight or an aim point or sorry, not an aim point, it's a brand. Is there a holographic or a red dot sight that has a night vision capable function on any of the NCR small arms? because I've not seen one. I'm again not trying to be like a smarty pants about this, but if there are, I'll happily stand corrected, and that would be, you know, that would be a great enhancement to their night vision goggles, or, you know, what they can see out of their eyes. But what I'm getting at here is that without the night vision, think of it as like a whole system, right? Like just having a set of goggles or the visors that let you see, like image intensify the darkness around you. That's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of it is, how do you combine that with your weapon system and make it like a holistic platform that lets you fight in the darkness? Do you get what I mean? So yeah, veteran rangers having night vision, sick. Again, one of these other reasons why I'm not too stressed about it. I don't see that it gives them a great amount of combat marksmanship by night. Let me check some comments here really quick. Hi. What? Did that disappear? Soz. Every time I click YouTube, I think it's going to disappear. I'm scrolling up, boys. There's my last comment. Up. Who we got? Just some random Brit. Hello, here, like your tactical analysis videos. Hi, thank you, friend. Oh, very kind. Animachi history. Oh, the GOAT. NCR combat power is fantastic in US, so put in real formation is rather unkind. Yeah, it had to be done, mate. Matthew Burnham says, worth noting that even if it's night, the veteran range, the veteran rangers, there's only a handful of them in Mojave. A handful, yeah. Well, the exact figure I'm not too sure on, but I'm certainly certain that it's, let's say, I don't know, no more than a company, and I think that's being generous. By the sound of it, it may be a platoon of veteran rangers kicking about, particularly at the dam. Cake Soup says, the armored mask designed to be worn with the helmet is necessary to use the IR lamp due to the low light optics integrated into the lenses. Quoting the Fallout wiki. Yes, to my knowledge, that's the Desert Ranger combat helmet. I was under the impression it was not the standard one. With that being said, yeah, I refer to the how we aiming our guns point as well. If I concede, which I will, I'll concede that all the Rangers should have had night vision in all their helmets. There's still a few issues that arise here. Pie Time, thank you for the HK $10. Like Ranger Vita, I didn't expect Legion at the end. Yeah, that was a bit of a sneaky one. I honestly kind of put that in lastminute.com. And I'd said this when we were doing those. I'm not sure if you were there for that one, Pie. When we were doing the members planning live streams, I was talking about, I hadn't quite decided how to go about the partner forces and who was going to relieve them once the raid was over. And I was of two minds. Do I make it another US military unit, given that I was referencing Haditha Dam a bit, and I think in that it was the US Marines who came in and took over afterwards? Or do I go in universe and say that the Legion come and relieve them? And that was ultimately what I went with. One of the reasons why is I kind of figured out I could do that funny little Photoshop where I have what do you call it? General Oliver there, and then the Rangers standing in the background, and then I'll photoshopped the text so it was like the in-game speech check, but made a bit like silly, a bit comical. Helios Drive, thank you for the Aussie $5, much appreciated. You're a bloody kind man. It'll go towards the second monitor fund. Sometimes suspension of disbelief is warranted to set up cool moments, particularly the showdown between the Steele brothers and Ghoulie Walter Goggins. Yeah, I assume you were talking about that part in my video where I dunked on him a little bit. Yeah, I agree with you though. That is it's a fun scene. I was kind of just taking the, grounded realism approach to how that would go down. But then there was another comment I saw, I didn't include it, but he was pointing out that was quite a funny, arguably, well, maybe not realistic, but in-universe way to depict a like high, what do you call it? Maybe high charisma, because he gets them stalling in their boots just from his words at first. High speech, high charisma, high, oh my God, I've lost the word for it. What's the one that gives you lots of action points? Someone tell me quick in chat. In New Vegas anyway. Or you could argue it's one of the other ones. Whichever the skill is that gives him lots of action points. Perception? Not sure. High perception build, that's why they went with that in the show, the Fallout TV show, which is fun. Okay, another comment or two, then I'm going to crack. Kriowich, thank you. I just wanted to stop in. I just found your channel and watching your videos are awesome. Much appreciated, my man. Xenonauts says, CSRC, do you usually feel more like a kangaroo or a wombat? Bloody hell, mate. I'm not sure what you're trying to make assertions about a man's physique over here. I'm not sure, mate. Neither. Kookaburra? Emu? I don't know. Buildomatic says, I always thought if you have a scope and NGs you can look through. No, not really. That's kind of one of the points I was getting at. You can't just look through any scope through your night vision. It doesn't work like that because scopes require a lot of light to be collected through the front objective lens in order to you to see through them, right? And make the reticle and everything work. So some optics, I wouldn't say scopes, but some weapon optics such as holographic sights and red dot sights allow this because they're effectively just like an empty tube, right? Or in the case of a holographic sight, think of an EOTech that you have, even in Call of Duty, even if you've never used one. It's pretty much just a plane of glass with a hologram of the reticle reflected onto it. So there's not infinite, but it's obviously much easier for light to pass through that, to transmit through that at night. And then you simply look through that pane of glass with your night vision goggles behind it, and then you can set a very low setting on the reticle illumination that won't like blur out the night vision because it's too bright. And that's how you shoot through these optics using active aiming. Passive aiming, active being if you use your laser. So to my knowledge, I don't see these optics in Fallout New Vegas. I've never come across one in game. If it's one of these things where it's like, yeah, they have them, they're just not in game. Okay. Not sure how we go about that because that might be a trend for a lot of these issues, but I just haven't seen them, guys. So, and it's very plausible. The game designers aren't weapons nuts or like ex-military, like autist perfectionists who need every detail correct. So rightly so, they don't think about this stuff. And I don't blame them. But, if we're doing this somewhat realistically or analyzing it through the lens of realism, then that's something to consider. They've got night vision. They need to have the weapon sights and optics that can complement that night vision as well, which they don't. Okay, moving on. Okay, this chap here, the Arizona Ranger, he makes a few points. And with a name like Arizona Ranger, I can probably guess where his allegiances lie. Not bloody me. Hail Caesar, get what I mean? Excuse me while I drink water, rude. Okay, Arizona Ranger says, as much as I don't want to trash the US Rangers, I think you discredit the capability of the NCR. For instance, the NCR veteran Rangers canonically have night vision mentioned by Chief Hanlon in the wiki and the trailer demonstrating it. However, it was not a game mechanic. Mentioned this before, I'm not going to harp on night vision too much more. Chief Hanlon does in fact mention it. I had that on the previous slide, which I'll bounce back to really quick. Down the bottom there, you can see Ranger combat helmets are old pre-war gear. They have built-in low-light optics, makes a big difference. That's an extract of dialogue from the game. Interestingly also that the old pre-war gear, because I think that indicates a lot of the points I'm making about how do they actually aim it and use it in a marksmanship, night combat marksmanship context, if it's pre-war night vision. Back to his point though. The wiki, again, I looked, guys, I checked both wikis, the Nuka wiki and the other one, there's two, and I didn't see a part where it mentioned NCR veteran Rangers having night vision, only the Desert Ranger combat helmet. And the trailer, but I've spoken to the trailer. Personally, I'm not going to take a cutscene as a good source of evidence. However, it's not an in-game mechanic. Likewise, you mentioned the NCR would suffer from a centralized command issue, but simultaneously state the NCR Rangers were spread throughout the defense to provide leadership, which I think is great level of initiative to them since NCR Rangers are used to operating autonomously. So the Arizona Ranger here is kind of conflating command or structures of command with, I would say, junior leadership. So centralized command doesn't refer to the absence or presence of a chain of command. It refers to where, how do I describe this? Where the authority to make, where decision-making authority lies, if that makes sense. So you can have a decentralized command and a centralized command both having a chain of command, but who makes the decisions is very different between the two. So I think he's conflating sort of junior leadership, as in giving them NCR Rangers on the top of the dam. Yeah, that would certainly provide some intangible improvements, boost to their morale. It might encourage them to stick around a bit better, but it's not strictly a difference between, or it's not the difference between centralized command or non-centralized command. Does that make sense? So yeah, what he makes is a fair, like, you know, his bottom part here, I don't disagree with. It is great initiative of them to weave in their more advanced troops with their junior or their unskilled troops on the damn surface wall, but it doesn't indicate that they no longer have centralized command. They very much still have centralized command in that pretty much all the calls and all decisions are coming from General Oliver. These rangers woven into these positions, they might enhance these other guys who they're fighting with, but they're not making decisions, if that makes sense. They certainly wouldn't have the authority to make the decisions at that level regarding the overall defensive plan. So a bit of a difference there just between like junior leadership and centralized command. We also shouldn't limit the weapons and supplies just to that of what, sorry, this is really small and I'm squinting, just to that of what the game spawns them with. That's another mechanic problem. They also wouldn't have access, they would have access to flare guns for low light problems. The flare guns, that's fine. Like I can go back and give them flare guns again, and it's probably not going to change too much of how I had the 75th Rangers tackle this problem. Noting that the flare guns are really only going to be useful for the surface fight, above ground that is. And I made mention of it too in the video, I'm pretty sure, that the dam is lit anyway. So some of the night vision overmatch for the Rangers is maybe not mitigated, but it's reduced. There's lots of little fires burning. I think there's even like power. In the game, you don't see like light bulbs and stuff, but there's fire, right? Like little fire pits and stuff. So it's not pitch black on the surface of the dam. So flare guns, yeah, they could have it. It might help, but I certainly don't think it's kind of a tactical problem that would lead to much difference in how the Rangers approach, or how I would have the Rangers approach in that plan we did. The top point, that's getting back to what I was talking about at the beginning. We shouldn't limit the weapons and supplies just to that of what the game spawns them with. That's another mechanic problem. But to what degree, guys? Like, what degree are we going to say, just ignore what you see in the game? They would have this, 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 and this because law says so. You get what I mean? Like, there's got to be a balancing act here between, like, when we're playing the game and we're running around and, like, I'm looting dead NCR bodies at the second battle of the Hoover Dam, not even the first battle, which is the one that we're replaying. And the argument I'd lodge is that they're better equipped at the second. They've had more time to prepare the defenses versus the first one. Am I just to ignore that, like pretend that this isn't what I'm finding when I'm going through the NCR positions? And some of the mechanic problems, honestly, I feel it's a bit of a cop-out, because let's take the rifles, for example. So I made the case that the service rifle is the standard weapon of the NCR, but in-game, you can find them using everything from shotguns to lever-action rifles to hunting rifles, and they don't all have the service rifle, presumably largely due to a logistics issue. And there's another piece about logistics I'll speak to in a second. But guys, I don't think it's that difficult for these game designers to simply have them all have service rifles, right? If that's the intent of it. So I'm not sure that's a mechanic problem. I think the mechanics, the thing that comes up a lot is, oh, they wanted to do this, but they couldn't put it in the game. They wanted to do that, but it's not in the game. Like, at what point, guys, is that gonna, like, that has to be a balance here. I'm not sure if I'm kind of repeating myself, but bloody hell, I'm struggling to articulate it, to be honest. At what point does that not become an excuse? I'll just say what I'm thinking. There's got to be a time when we reference the actual source material, the primary A1 source, which is the game itself, the thing that came first, and we use the information we can gain from this. And then we blend that, we supplement that with lore information, and then make some deductions based on a combination of the both. Moving on. Lastly, let's take the experience of the NCR into account. Nearly every soldier in the NCR would have been in some fight at some point, whether it's Raiders, Legion, Death Claws, etc. The same can't be said about the US Rangers. I'm not sure I agree on this one. The US Rangers still have been, even in post-GWAT timeframes, they're certainly a very highly deployed unit. You could argue that they're maybe not running around doing as many direct action raids as they were in, I don't know, between 2005 and 2015. But to my knowledge, the Rangers were, like, hard charging through Afghanistan pretty much up until, not the withdrawal, not that soon, but into the late Afghan period post, I'd say, 2015. Not to mention other deployments, Syria, bunch of other places they've been seen. Like, this is not bloody super secret knowledge. Oh, you can just, there's images of them in these places I'm describing. So yeah, they're still getting combat experience. Maybe not in the same sense that they're fighting Deathclaws or Raiders. I didn't think there were bloody Raiders in New Vegas. Isn't that a misnomer in this case? And yeah, they're not fighting giant beasts, but yeah, they're still. I would say their experience wise is probably on par. And to add to that, even if it was the opposite, I would say that there's something detrimental about the Rangers or the NCR. Sorry, if it was the case, as you say, that they are constantly engaged. Because there can kind of come a point where if you are constantly just operational like this, yes, you get experience, but there's something to be said for training as well, which is why most units, Western military, I'm speaking from the Australian context, you have a cycle where you're like training in one, then you're deploying for a next, then you're resetting, and then you start training again for a deployment. And it's like a 3-stage cycle, which units will have a slot in one of these phases at any one time. Because just being operational the entirety of their existence, which some of the NCR might be, you might see sort of skills degrading in a roundabout way. Yes, they're gathering experience, but like hard skills, you get that purely from training. There's some things you can't kind of learn on the job, if that makes sense. Do I still think the US Rangers still achieve overmatch, have better training? Sure, but it's not so far separate that it's a steamroll. Yeah, fair statement. Not too upset about that. I used the phrase steamroll in the video, potentially a bit of hyperbole. Yeah, I'm not going to die on the hill over saying it is or isn't a steamroll. Yeah, I certainly don't think it's an easy fight for the 75th Rangers. Absolutely not. It's they've got a competent force up ahead of them, and I hope I kind of painted that picture, because I'm not making these to like poo-poo the NCR or poo-poo the opposition. Like, I genuinely try and give them their flowers when they're due, and, you know, point out what they're good at and what they're not so good at and that sort of thing. But Arizona Ranger, I thank him for his non-hysterical and courteous comment here, despite probably being a dyed-in-the-wool NCR supporter based on his bloody namesake. Okay, next one here. The Senate, 8050. 8050. My man here, Sheev Palpatine. I still haven't forgiven him for what he did to my boy Kit Fisto. One thing I think you're underestimating is the ways the NCR has an edge on modern tech. Stealth boys, stimpaks, etc. Also the NVGs, which they do in fact have in the helmets. Obsidian just didn't have time to implement them until the DLC rolled around due to the tight release schedule. It's pretty clear from the intro cinematic with the Elite Ranger show and turning them on at night. Yep, DLC. Yep, why didn't they put them in all the armors then after they rolled out the DLC? Never mind. Don't care. Moving on. Also, Riot Gear in Fallout is some of the best non-powered armor in the series. The Rangers aren't badly armored. This still doesn't make the NCR perfect fighting force, but they aren't bad. Also, obligatory wood furniture. ARs look cool AF. Disagree about wood furniture. Wooden guns belong in the 50s. Ugly. Do not like. Personal choice of aesthetics, I guess. Not a fan, and I back that statement. But back to some of Sheev's other points here. Where I'll also concede here, I think the tech, insofar as their, I'm not sure what you call it, medical advancements, chems, we'll just say chems because that's what it's called in games, right? Stealth boys, stim packs, that sort of stuff, I definitely should have woven into the video, and I think definitely would have been worth mentioning for some of the NCR capabilities. Not all of them. I think some of them are nonsense or not, I'm not sure, like plausibly woven into this kind of what we're doing, like strategic thinking. The example I'd give would be Jet, right? So Jet is one of the what do you call it? The chems, the drugs. Oh God, I hope I'm not going to get YouTube naughty from saying all these D words. It's one of the, we'll say, illicit narcotics in the game, and it effectively gives the user bullet time. I'm not sure how you would weave in bullet time to a modern grounded in realism take on this sort of thing. So the Rangers are just assaulting along the dam and suddenly they're like frozen and they're slow because one of the NCR popped Jet. So yeah, Jet I think is one example of one that's probably absurd. Another example might be, what's the damage one? Buff. No, Psycho. Psycho, which I believe increases damage resistance and damage output. Same thing, guys. These dudes in game injecting it. It's a bloody injectable. It's serious stuff. Psycho is not going to make your bullets hit harder, no matter what game developers tell you. I don't think I'm bursting anyone's bubble with that, but some of these are absurd. Some of them I think are more intriguing in terms of how the NCR could utilize them, particularly Stimpaks and Stealth Boys. Stealth Boys, if we looked at them, it's a, what do you call it? I believe it's a device. It's not a chem, the Stealth Boy. So it's not something you inject or consume. It's a, mechanical thing you wear. I think it's wrist mounted. Gives the user effectively a limited force invisibility field, which I believe works similar to, Predator-esque cloaking technology. It refracts or reflects the image and then presents what's behind you in front of you in a roundabout way. I believe that's how it works. Those would certainly be intriguing to weave into the battle design. And I think I probably should have done that. No, definitely should have included Stealth Boys. I'll make that concession. Because it's almost a disruptive bit of kit technology for the NCR and how you'd go about countering it for the Rangers. Which, what comes to mind is you'd probably then start favouring fusion NVGs, which the 75th Ranger Regiment would certainly have. I would suggest they probably don't elect to use them all the time because the fusion kit is pretty handy. So for the guys who aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, I probably should have flashed a picture up. It's a mix of both IR night vision and infrared. So you can get a nice little outline and it makes humans or anything that gives off a heat signature pop, where it might not necessarily do so under strict image intensification night vision goggles. But I would suggest that this current gen of night vision goggle probably would be able to counter the effects of Stealth Boys. And that would be something you'd have to look at then as the Rangers, probably weaving some of these fusion into your squads. If not I don't think you'd want everyone using them because they have their limitations, particularly when you're moving. The description I've heard guys say is, I've not used the fusions myself, full disclosure, but the complaint I heard from a lot of guys who have is that it's like motion blur. So they think they're apt, or another sentiment is that they're apt and they're pretty good for, say, static defensive kind of work. But if you're running and gunning, you can get a bit bloody seasick using the fusion goggles, this sort of stuff. So they do have their downsides. Anyway, and the other one's Stimpaks, which are essentially it's a little bit magic, but I still think it's fair to weave them in. And again, why I say that is because you come across them in game quite often. And the NCR do have Stimpaks. And that's it's an injectable that gives you health. I'm not sure. It's a weird one to try and, work around. I guess you'd have to just be killing people outright and not letting them get to cover to deploy a Stimpak. But again, put real world context on this. NCR have Stimpaks. They're not just pressing tab and then freezing time and pulling up their Pip-Boy or, rummaging through their pockets while everyone else is frozen in place, which is, how the game works when you use a Stimpak. To use a Stimpak, you're going to have to do it much the same way as putting on a tourniquet or putting on a combat bandage, doing first aid in the real world. You're going to have to find cover. Someone else is going to have to suppress and get some fire onto the enemy so you can do this individual life-saving first aid. So, yeah, Stimpaks are interesting in terms of the medical advantages they offer the NCR, but I think tactically how you employ them, not much changes from, say, a Ranger ducking behind cover and putting on a tourniquet. The Stimpaks obviously just be much more effective, better up, because they just magic you. They magic raise your health bar, right? One of the other things to consider about the chems and that sort of thing, though, I believe the Rangers, or the NCR, have a strict no chems policy. Not to say that there haven't been soldiers throughout history in militaries with strict no narcotics policies that haven't indulged in said products. But having these things, even if I had woven them in, some of the other chems that is, I don't think it's fair, or I don't think it would be apt to deduce that every single NCR trooper on the damn wall has got a pocket full of Jet, Buff Out, Psycho, Mentats, and they're just popping them like crazy all throughout the battle. I think the chems would be pretty randomly spread throughout the population of the NCR army on the damn wall, and sparingly so. I just don't think that it would be prolific, that every single dude would be some chem addicted freak. And on that note, a lot of these chems have horrific downsides. I think even the stealth boys cause like psychosis and insanity. And if you use too many stealth boys, you go insane. That's in the game. I think it's those super mutants that are the. Oh, I'm clenching my bloody nose trying to remember. The Nightkin. Are they the ones who went insane from using too many stealth boys? The point is that a lot of these chems have downsides, right? So it's not just like they have chems, they're super soldiers, and they're going to win. There's nuance to it. Anyway, moving on. The rest of your stuff about the armor. Again, I'm not going to die on the armor hill because it's a conversation about ballistics, right? Like, how well can their riot gear, inverted commas, because it's what it's labeled as. How effective is it really? And then again, how effective is it really against AP ammunition? And then same is for the rangers. Like when I think about stuff like this, and I just broke it down, I think it's light, medium, and heavy armor. When I give them medium armor, in my brain, they're the same level of armor as the 75th Rangers, right? So they have like presumably a strike face or a hard plate, which is going to give you protection from projectiles. But then if you get struck in other places, it's probably going to penetrate. I'll check some comments here real quick. I don't want Adobe Acrobat. Get out of the way. Sorry, scrolling up. Pie Time, welcome to supporter. Hi, welcome back. Helios Drive, thank you for the Australian $2. High Perception, maybe add Terrifying Presence. That's probably plausible. I think that's what they're going for in that scene as well in the show. This is, we're referring to the ghoul scene when he just, I bet that outfit makes y'all feel like a big man, don't it? And he does his little, Harry hard cunt bloody speech to terrify the Brotherhood of Steel Assaulters. Thanks to the 2 schmackos. Scrolling through some other comments, Dr. Dingus says, I just ate like 6 eggs for brekkie. Jesus, mate, take it bloody easy. What about your cholesterol? Good protein, though. You're going to be farting up a storm. Who else we got? Pie Time. Actually, 75th Rangers likely have level 4 sappy plates, SF variants to stop armor-piercing rounds, a ballistic stop score fast helmets, which even if hit by bullets, though, can't stop minigun attack. Yeah, that's fair. Again, like, I put it down to, well, in my brain when I was crafting this out, I would have said that the Rangers and the NCR were pretty much on par in terms of their protective kit. It's not super duper hill that I was going deep into or dying on because I was giving the Fallout guns and the Fallout weapons real world universe characteristics. And again, this is another one of those things that comes back to that conversation about being selective with what are we taking from the game, what are we not taking from the game. If I was using everything in game lore, then I'd say that the minigun shoots marshmallows like it does in the game, and that my rangers can take 20,000 hits of 5mm rounds from the minigun, because that's what happens in the game. The minigun is a pile of garbage. The projectiles more so. But I didn't. I treat all the kit in the game like if you get hit by this thing, it's probably going to hurt you, harm you, or put you down, or kill you, because it's bullets, and bullets fly fast. Potato Face 565, cool name. Nice cat. Why did you name your channel after the China Securities Regulatory Commission? I did not. But it's funny you mentioned that because one of the other aims of the channel was I do a lot of, if you check the resources thing on the website, I have a lot of info guides on the PLA, that is China's army, because it's a point of interest for me. I like kind of the PLA observers, and part of that is to get like modern diggers and modern soldiers kind of up to date on, well, not up to date because they are more up to date than me, but provide them some resources about learning about the PLA. So yeah, it was funny. I learned after the fact, after creating CSRC, that there is in fact the China Securities Regulatory Commission. Okay, moving on. Ian K. Anderson, 50s aesthetic in my Fallout. Yeah, I understand. The Fallout has the 50s that never died, and that's why the music and everything looks that way. I was talking about the wood being a personal choice, and that I don't bloody care for it, mate. I don't like the look of wooden guns. I'm not suggesting that it's silly they have wooden guns. I'm just saying I don't like the look of it. Okay. Helios Drive. Thank you for the 5 Australian schmackos. Again, good man. Bloody appreciate you. How do you feel about making a vid on a large scale military operation over a single engagement, i.e. Australian military tackling the Rook Islands? Refresh my military. Rook Islands? Is that Dead Island with zombies? That's a fun idea. I've not actually had anyone suggest that, if that is what you're talking about. But that would be a weird one, because if my memory serves, in Dead Island, it's already the Australian military. I think it's like one of the first games where the Australian military, I've seen them be the villains. So that was kind of fun. That was a funny twist up. That's if it is Rook Islands from Dead Island that you're talking about, and I'm remembering that correctly. If not, I'm going to shut up. I could do it. I could do it. A lot of the problems, to answer your question, it's to do with how do I present it? How do I show it on a map? And that's the challenge I face with a lot of these. And look, I could do it, but it probably wouldn't be my favorite thing. I prefer the closer in scale. So I'm talking like battalion and below level things that I can show, probably realistically in terms of terrain, company and below, because it's easier to show on a video, right, on a 2D plane. So I could potentially, but yeah, it'd take some work. Just some random Brit. Hello, not related, but could do a tactical analysis video using the best British military force whoever you choose to pick. CSRC. Do a tactical analysis. Yeah, yes. I intend to use the British when I do the Battle of Hogwarts, which is on the list, and that will be done eventually. So yeah, I could do that. Bob, thank you for the $5 Australian. Since the NCR could have gotten Boomer B-29 carpet bombing, could the 75th be given air support from the RAF from the time they flew over the dam in Taz? A little shout out to one of my other videos there, the not the Hoover Dam. Yeah, what's with the dam lore on this channel? It's accidental, I swear. The Franklin River Dam in Tasmania. I made a whole video about it. It's my worst performing video, but it's one of my favorites. About a situation where they used an Australian spy plane to like spy on a bunch of protesters in Tasmania because they were like blockading a dam. Thank you for that shout out that I can then cross-reference as well. But to your point, yeah, to your point on a sincere, or answering it sincerely, I didn't involve the boomers or air support on both sides or anything like this under the prevailing assumption, which I mentioned a few times, which is that both sides critically need to keep the dam intact, which is also one of the reasons why I didn't give the NCR any mini nukes, which was something that some of the guys brought up in the planning chats, but they want to keep the dam alive as much as they can, so I don't think lobbing thermonuclear bombs around is something that they would be doing. Okay, oh, someone just said something here. Narcotic azism. Cake soup, do they? I thought it's the Legions that doesn't use chems. Yes, you're correct. I want to speak to that as well. Someone else said this too. I just saw it here. Yeah, so the Legion have like a zero tolerance chems policy. They frown upon it. They think you're just a degenerate, deviant, and that you're weak because you need these narcotics to stimulate your body. So the Legion has a far stricter like no narcotic policy. Like I'm pretty sure they just crucify you. But the NCR, still has, in the sense that a democratic military force has a no drugs policy. But again, how that's enforced or how loosely that's enforced is very different to that of the Legion. And on that note too, Legion in both first and second Battle of Hoover Dam therefore did not have the advantage of chems. And still managed to put up a decent showing in the first battle where they pretty well overtook the dam. They made from the east side to the west. So again, yeah, chems, I should have woven them in, but I don't largely see how I would have changed the Rangers' tactical plan based on the NCR using narcotics. Get what I mean? Yeah, Nightkins. Dr. Dingus, I feel like I'd eat a dozen eggs if I had to. Bloody calm down, you're a madman. Yeah, right. Helios Dive, another 2 Aussie schmackos, thank you very much. Rook Islands is Far Cry 3. I'm dumb. Rook Islands is Far Cry 3, so pirates and privateers. Yeah, word. That's a fun one. I don't know how you'd map that out. Actually, the maps in Far Cry 3 wouldn't be too difficult. I was thinking of Far Cry, the OG original. I'm going to add that to the list. I'll add Far Cry to the list. To the list. Okay, moving on. This is some of the kit. You should be looking at a slide now that has the inventories. I went through the Hoover Dam and I looted the bodies of the NCR that I killed. I'm playing as the Legion. And these are the various NCR that were defending the position and what they had on them. So this is kind of just, it's not evidence to support my case, but this is one of those things where, like, we play the game, we see what they have. And in this case, I didn't find a single, I'm just bloody checking the list here before I misspeak. I didn't find any chems. I didn't see evidence in the game at the second Battle of Hoover Dam that the NCR soldiers are using chems to enhance their fighting prowess in that biological sense. So again, this is one of those things, boys, like, oh, but they just weren't in the game because of engine limitations. It's like, really, I don't buy that. How hard would it have been to give these guys in the game buff out Psycho Mentats? I'm sure it's just a single line of code in all of these guys, these dead guys, may they rest in peace, their inventories. You get what I mean? So it's one of those things. Yes, these things exist in the universe and in the lore, but in terms of the primary source being the game, they don't have it. So you get what I'm saying? Like, I can see how there's an argument both ways here, but I suppose my message behind all this, which I know I'm repeating myself on, is that we have to balance it. And I think in doing this balancing, I'm just simply never going to make everyone happy, particularly those violently militant in support of the faction involved from the fictional side of the battle, if that makes sense. That one ranger stacked with super stim packs, LMAO, says Kennedy the V. Yeah, where's he at? Yeah, NCR Ranger super stim pack, mate. He's hoarding that, and that bloke was just on the damn wall as well. I think that's where I bloody smoked him. The rest of these guys were all underground. The veteran ranger, the heavy troopers. The troopers were on the damn wall as well. Bloody not sharing that kid, is he? Okay, one other point here, I think from enemy. No, two other points. One slight mistake about heavy troopers. The power armor they wear is missing the servos and electronics, so these are slow, cumbersome tools that generally load out to be the shotguns and heavier weapons. Yeah, I was aware of this too. I just didn't mention it because I didn't mind, like, that the NCR had, let's say, fully functioning power armor, right? Like, I was effectively happy to give that to them. But yeah, I was privy to this little bit of tidbit lore that, because they, salvaged it from the Brotherhood at the Battle of Helios 1, they had to just rip all this stuff out. And they weren't as advanced as using power armor as guys like the Enclave or the Brotherhood and that sort of stuff. So yeah, fun facts, lore, important facts. I just didn't mention it, to be honest. So, and I think, though, in not mentioning it, that enhances the NCR's fighting capability, not really detracts from it. So I don't think it's hugely controversial to not include it. Okay, I just want to point out, this says Aussie Man 4791. I just want to point out, and others have too, but the NCR you mentioned around 28 minutes doesn't exist. At that point, I was talking about scarcity of their supplies, is, I believe, what I was referencing in the video. The NCR is an industrial powerhouse, able to produce their own ammo, food, and money. They even have a small air force, Navy and have tanks, robots, APCs, trucks, but that's not shown in the game due to time constraints. Yep. The NCR are the closest to what we would call a modern society or first world power. The soldiers, while being conscripts for the most part, do get trained and trained properly. They don't need to worry about ammo, especially for their standard weapons. Maybe it's subpar to modern ammo, but they still can produce a lot of it. No issues with the lore side of this, in that, like, the NCR being very industrious, they have their own capacity to manufacture. No, yeah, absolutely. I'm not suggesting they're like digging up old pre-war ammunition. Them having their own production is was sort of implied. You know, I wasn't doing a whole lore video on the industrial revolution of the NCR. But I disagree that they don't need to worry about ammo. The line here that you've used in your comment, I think they certainly do, insofar as, again, my comment about training, because how do they receive said ammunition? That's the issue I have. It's the logistics. It's not their capacity to manufacture. It's how are they moving this ammunition around the battle space to the hundreds of outposts, larger bases, roving patrols, resupplying recce teams. How are they doing this? That's something that I think they would struggle with. So potentially, it's not the quantity of ammunition they can produce or have in, say, their stock that is an issue. Their logistical train is an absolute nightmare. And I think that's what I'm not sure if I mentioned the word logistics. I should have if I did not. But that's kind of what I'm citing as a problem that would impact their training. How do they move this stuff around? Let's say there's trucks, like you've talked about here, right, in your comment. Let's say there's trucks, but they're not shown in game. Have you boys seen the state of the roads in the Mojave Wasteland? You know what I mean? Let's say they have functioning trucks. I'll give you that. It's, again, one of these things. Oh, it's not in the game, but they actually have it. Okay. I don't think that's a good thing to include, but I'll, for the case of this argument, say they do. Even then, how are they getting these these trucks around to all these different positions. Most of these locations, or a lot of them, the road is completely still obliterated from the war, from the nuclear Armageddon. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a good, say, off-road logistical way of them getting kit around. Vertibirds, you might say as well, but what we see in the game, they certainly don't seem like they have enough vertibirds that they use them as a logistical tool. They seem to use the vertibirds as a VIP transport tool. Again, my citation is the mission where you assassinate President Kimball, because he's being ferried around on an NCR vertibird. So, you know, I just don't think they have the vertibirds spare that they're using them for ammunition transport or resupply. You just don't see it shown in game. You get what I mean? So even if they have the ammunition, which is your point, and I'm not disputing that, I would still suggest the logistics behind said ammunition, as in moving it around to all these different positions, that's where they're going to have a challenge, and that is going to have the second order effect of impacting their training. If you don't have the ammunition because it can't get to you, you're not going to be able to train effectively, which is kind of the point I was trying to make there, how it would impact their training. Kennedy DeV. The game does explicitly, through dialogues, state they're overextended in the Mojave. Yeah, look, I think I would agree. I can't remember that exact dialogue bit, but none of the NCR that you speak to in game, or not none, but a lot of them seem pretty jaded. The sentiment that they don't have what they need is pretty prevailing. There's a lot of them you speak to that have this, either be it training, be it that they're working with a bunch of rejects, like the Camp Golf misfits, or that they, simply by what you see on them, they don't have all the kit and ammo. Yeah, I think it's a fairly... I didn't think it was that controversial to say that they would struggle with logistics, but I'm trying to hopefully prosecute a case here why I think they would struggle with logistics. Moving on. Okay, friendly guys. So the Rangers, the 75th Regiment type, that is. I'm getting a bloody hoarse voice here. I'm going to sip some water. Excuse me. Did I miss any comments or donos? Sorry if I did. No, the last one was from Helios Drive, Rook Islands, Far Cry 3. Surprise and privateers. Moving on. Surveu24 says, why would the snipers not do some counter sniping at the beginning instead of the machine guns? Can someone explain? I can explain. So what I said in the video rather, I wanted the snipers to engage the eastern side of the dam NCR, mostly because the machine guns were unfit to do so. So as he says, having the snipers do counter sniping, that's a fine idea too. But if you do that, then who's going to engage the forward line of enemy defenders that are like in imminent contact to your advancing ranges? So the reason I cited was because it's a bit too tight, and at that distance, it's sketchy for the machine guns to be hosing on that angle that close to the front line of friendly troops. So you have snipers doing that so they can engage nice and close to your assaulters compared to machine guns, that is, leaving the machine guns to harass the NCR sniper position. So that's pretty much why I was getting at that. Hope that makes sense. Next, I have a problem with the Rangers. They are skilled in rappelling down cliff faces. They could use a platoon to rappel down the side and help clear from the bottom up, while the other platoon tasked with clearing could go from top down. I mentioned this as much. I think I even mentioned rappelling in the video, but yeah, this is just not, it's not really sat to have these guys at the bottom of a dam moving across either pre or post bang. Noting that then if your NCR dude's on the top, all you have to do is lob grenades down the wall, or, you know, you're shooting fish in a barrel at that point. Night vision or no night vision. They're on the bottom of the dam, probably very visible. And not to mention how you do that being undetected, if that's what you're suggesting, that's difficult. Like rappelling a whole platoon off a cliff, crossing a river. And if they're not crossing the river, then I think you're suggesting they're moving along the roof of the officers. The way they're going to go about this with the platoon and not be compromised, I don't see that happening. So that was my issue with this, which I think I mentioned in the avenues of approach when I was doing the terrain analysis for this one. It would be sketchy. I would suggest the only way, if you were going to cross the river, you would do so much further downstream, much like the NCR do in the game. But then the further you go downstream, the further you are from the objective, being the dam. And then the more patrols, the more NCR sentries, the more NCR outposts you've got to somehow negotiate, presumably stealthily on your insertion, to get to your blocking position anyway. So this was kind of one of those rock and the hard place things in that, yes, doctrinally, it would be better to have a block on the western side of the dam, but I just couldn't see a viable way to do so that didn't needlessly risk compromise. Okay, Driptacular Dragonborn says, my only question is, how did the Rangers use radios and drones? I know there's radio stations in Fallout, but unless the Rangers could tap into the satellites being used, wouldn't their tech be effectively useless? And then Jack727 Dave 5, what a bloody name, says, radios don't rely on radio towers to transmit signals. They are perfectly able to transmit and receive data, I assume he means, by themselves, although they might struggle with range. Given the relatively small area the battle takes place in, that isn't a concern. Long story short, yeah, Jack Dave has pretty much answered the question for me. The radios they would have are capable of working independently. If they were using something like SATCOM, which you would need to, well, broadcast messages back to a vastly physically dislocated headquarters, then yeah, you'd make a case that wouldn't work because there's no functioning satellites that they could tap into, at least in the Fallout future. But yeah, the radios working and FPV drones, probably not going to have too much of a pickle with that, with our teleporting through time traveling rather, 75th Ranger Force. Had a heavy weapons question. What is the difference between M240 Bravo and Golf using the GWAT and the Lima model? It's lighter. That's why it's L. That's all. I'll keep it short and sweet. Same gun, just lighter barrel, lighter buttstock, some other, I think, titanium receiver. Makes it much lighter than the M240 Bravo. Hope that answers your question, MD Purple. Okay, back end. Let me read some comments here before I get into the back end. Oh, we got a bloody dono again. Helios Drive. Thank you for the Aussie 5 schmackos. Bloody hell, mate. You're too generous. Echoing Xenonauts. Would you use a Mass Effect scenario in a vid? ME is defo a weaker sci-fi universe, but it still stomps contemporary militaries. Yeah, guys, I'm not against Mass Effect. I've never played it. So I'm not just intuitively familiar with the lore or any of the battles or anything like this. So yeah, I certainly could do it. It would just take a piss load of research, and then I'd probably upset lots of people as well. But I just don't know anything about it. So like when you guys say Mass Effect, I don't know like what battle you're referring to or, you know, what key event there is. Again, my guiding principle and like my stock reply is if I can present it easily on a map visually, then yeah, I'm keen for it and I can make it work. Bob, thank you for the Australian $2. Is D water you drank from a trusty Vault 13 canteen? Yeah, mate, it is for sure. Bloody, the radiation makes the flavor. It's character building, you know. I'm just gonna have some. You made me thirsty reading your comment here about the trusty Vault 13 canteen. What a bloody mouthful. Thanks, mate. Thanks for the 2 schmackos, Bob. Much appreciated. Alex says, are US infantry units doctrinally provided FPV drones? Is there any SOP for how many are issued on platoon level? Well, to answer the first part of your question, I know the 75th Rangers have FPV drones. They have released Sizzler reels. There's a Ranger YouTube channel which is quite good. They have a lot of cool like arousal type videos. They show them explicitly using FPV drones. In terms of how many they're issued, I'm sure the underside of those shiny rocks are not public knowledge yet. But yeah, I don't know what their SOPs are in terms of quantity of drone. But I know with certainty that the 70th Ranger Regiment do have and use FPV drones. Okay, guys, getting on to the back end. So this is kind of wrapping up, but stick with me because if you like the behind the scenes stuff, there's going to be something in here that bloody blows your skirt up, I promise you. The behind the scenes of how goes into some of the videos or what goes into some of the videos. I can't even speak anymore. I'm losing my mind. First one. This is a common question that comes up in a lot of videos and I address it in every live stream debrief. So as is tradition, I'm just going to go ahead and do it again now. What is the point if you have the modern force always win? To which Mesha Khad replies and says, the point is not so much to say who would win, but show how a modern force would plan to win. Thank you, Mesha Khad, for answering that. Yeah, that's my answer to that question too. I'm not doing like Batman v Superman, or I'm not doing like Deadpool v Deathstroke and like doing a play-by-play and like, oh, Deathstroke pulls out his sword and then Deadpool gets a pistol but he can't die. And it's the planning side of it. That's really the meat and potatoes of what I'm doing. And so yeah, to Meshachad's point, that is the how, right? So I'm picking like a force I'm picking the battle, the source material, then I'm replacing one of the belligerents with a modern military force, and then pretending, making like I'm the commander of this force. I'm planning this out in terms of like how we might do it. Caveat that I'm not a tactical bloody genius, right? Like I have a basic, fundamental exposure to like army infantry tactics. That's like what my career was. So, it's mostly just a simple look of some pretty simple concepts and techniques that we use in both planning and execution of these missions. So that's really the meat and potatoes. Yeah, it's not who would win, but it's like how would we win if we were taking part in this battle and instead of the Caesar's Legion. Does that make sense? I hope that answers your question, Sir Arrow Ace. Next. Matthew Paul 4520 says, wow, I left like a 10-paragraph long response in the comment section of this video about other statistics, equations, tactics, and scenarios, and it was simply deleted. That hurts. To which I replied, no comments have been deleted. Sorry, comments in the chat. Deathstroke? Did I say it wrong? I thought it was Deathstroke. Are you gaslighting me, mate? Nah, it is Deadpool and Deathstroke, or did I misspeak and combine them into one? Either way, I probably did. I'm fried. This one here, guys, I wanted to bring this up because this is a weird thing that happens every video. I get a comment saying I've deleted it, like someone upset that I've deleted a comment. I'm not deleting comments, chaps. I promise you. Like, you have no way of bloody believing me on that, of course, but I'll swear on whatever deity you want. I'm not deleting your comments. I just wanted to bring this one up and put it in here because this is I get this probably every video. I'm not sure if it's like a bot thing, like a spam thing to get me to reply or whatever, but it's happened enough now that I see it as a pattern and I'm like, this is strange. I'm just going to simply address this. I'm not deleting your comments. There's sometimes there's like a comment filter thing, right? That's what I see when I look at comments on YouTube. There's a few comments that don't make it past the YouTube filter, and I won't approve certain comments if they're particularly obscene, or the other case is if they're like doxing in nature, which happened a few times in like my Australian Army videos. There's like obviously photos of real soldiers in there, and then people are commenting like, oh, at timestamp, that's this dude, he's a dickhead for these reasons, and he lives in this city. That sort of stuff, I'm not letting that through because I'm not trying to, especially when I do like an Australian Army video like I have done, not trying to let people slag each other off or get people like in trouble behind the scenes in their real job. But yeah, the point here, guys, I'm not deleting comments. There's plenty of nasty comments slagging me off and calling me 20 different names throughout most of the videos. Yeah, this is a weird thing. I just wanted to bring this up because this seems to be happening a lot, but I'm not deleting them. Matthew Paul, I promise you, I didn't delete your comment, and I just wanted to point that out now. Oh, sorry, also, this comment, as you can see, because it says 1 month ago, this was from the Matrix video, but this was a screenshot I had handy of this example, so I just thought I'd chuck it in here and talk about it now because I'm meaning to do it for a while. Okay, what is going on in the chat? I wouldn't complain about listening to our lovely narrator's smooth Aussie voice narrate homoerotic Deadpool Mate, simmer down. What are you guys doing? Bloody playing up like a second-hand lawnmower in here. Other channels, Bob says, other channels have reported that sometimes if there is a word that YouTube filters, the comment will be deleted. There you go. That would explain it too, because, yeah, like I'm saying, I'm not deleting comments, but this seems to be happening. Bloody hell, big orange thing popped up. Who's this? Firestorm. Thank you for the Australian $20. In RDM's Battlestar Galactica, there's an arc on Kobol where a team has to escape an ambush, retrieve medical supplies from said ambush site, and then conduct a raid in a sand battery. Could you cover one or all of these? Battlestar Galactica. I'm going to put that in the chat here. Note, so I don't forget. Battlestar Galactica. You know what? I think thank you for the 20 schmackos. I'm not sure if I said that, but thank you. Very kind. Is that the one where he gives like a SMEAC? He's got his little notebook out. There's a junior officer and he's in the field and he starts going like situation, mission, and they're all standing around like rolling their eyes and cringing. Because I think I remember that scene. If that's the one you're talking about. I don't remember Kobol. It's been a long time since I watched Battlestar Galactica. Terrific show though. Have seen. But if this is the scene you're talking about, I think it's funny. And I think I do remember it. Very amusing. And yeah, I certainly could. If there's something on Firestorm, that's the one. Yeah, I remember that. That's funny. I definitely could. I suppose I'd replace the Galactica crew or whoever's involved. But yeah, I definitely could do it. And the dude who plays the officer, who is that? Someone Google that, please. Because he's gone on to, I think, become bigger. Or it's someone very iconic now. The dude who plays that like cringe officer. It's not Rami Malek, but it's someone who like looks like Rami Malek. I might be completely misremembering. Lauren Williams, g'day, Cobber from New South Wales. Bloody g'day, New South Wales, good bloody state. Azizm says, CRC, are you guy or love heart? Oh, emojis, okay. Are you smiley face emoji guy or... I don't know what that emoji is. Man, I am old, brother. I don't know if I've told you that before, but I don't even know what that one is. Is it a chef's hat? It looks like, what's his name from Futurama? Bloody tentacle face. Bloody hell, another Helios. Helios, you're gonna get the you're gonna get me a second monitor. I appreciate you, mate. Helios Drive, another bloody 5 Australian schmackos. Thank you, Ledge. ME Legendary Edition is $9 9 on Steam right now. IYW, boys. I don't know what IYW means. I'm old. I'm sorry. If you want, the games come with an extensive in-game codices for world building and lore. Maps would be harder to grab. Okay, I'm going to type that in. What is this? Games come with... Is ME Legendary? Can someone just tell me what that is? Zoidberg, yeah. It looks like Zoidberg. Look at him. Azizm's chat. Smiling face, but with the Zoidberg face. I don't know what. Sorry, I'm looking at Helios Drive's comments still. I don't know what ME Legendary Edition is. Can someone please explain? Bob, I'm a YouTuber commenting. This is my favorite attempt to bully. I'm convinced CSRC to play Mass Effect. But man, I'm keen. You know, I'm keen. Oh, Mass Effect. Oh, I'm dumb. Okay, thanks, boys. ME equals Mass Effect. Kingdom of Vinland. Vinland. I'd love to see breakdowns in the ground combat from BSG. Vinland. He said F blood. Vinland. I'm thinking of that clip. We're getting out of hand here, boys. I'm going back to the PowerPoint. We're getting derailed. Where was I up to? I'm getting distracted. They're going skits. Okay, what was I up to? Back end. Okay, the next one. Can you turn off auto dubbing? This is apparently a big problem for a lot of our YouTube content creators. The auto dubbing is giving off different languages. I have turned it off now to answer your question, Selieve1124. But I didn't realize, because it had already uploaded the video at the time, it had auto-dubbed it. But now if you go back and watch, it should have all the auto-dubbing removed. And I had to bloody manually go back and remove the auto-dubbing and auto-translation in the subtitles from all the older videos as well. Very annoying. But I'm hoping that moving forward, that should be fixed. So yeah, no more auto-dubbing. Some other comments here relating to kind of making of. Jojo Mania 1105 says, why is the video voiced by AI? It's not. It's just me, fella. Hate to break it to you. Next up, we have 11 says, I love the continuation of the series and I really appreciate the more laid-back narration of this episode, although I do love the more rigid and condensed narration of the Battles series. Thank you for the kind words. And then Xeno MDK says, I'm not sure what it was exactly, but I feel like the video quality is better. It was either small video edits or voice over sounding less robotic. The video is more upbeat feeling. Either way, it's nice. Thank you for the kind words. The bottom two, Jojo Mania, go fist yourself. I wanted to talk about this because, yeah, I've changed the style of the way I read a little bit. And it was a conscious choice to try and be a bit more engaging and not sound like Mr. Roboto doing tactical analysis. But for anyone who cares, the way I went around that was I changed up the way I do the scripting. So now I don't write verbatim, the Rangers moved to and occupied the SBF position. Now I just do bullet points. So it'll be like Rangers, SBF, Assault Force, moves, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point in my crazy Microsoft Word document. And then so I have to kind of elaborate and I speak a bit more casually, which, yeah, I'm trying to be a bit more engaging. I don't want to sound like, you know, like uber boring. Like I know it's kind of got to keep a professional facade here for the content we're doing. But yeah, I want it to be a bit more engaging, you know, like bloody just speak a bit more interesting. And there were other comments on my older videos, which is like, this makes me really want to go to sleep. But I mean that in a nice way. And I'm like, oh, thanks. I'll take it. But I'm not bloody trying to put people to sleep. Okay, some other comments. Sorry, no. First, I'll move on. Yeah, that was just, yeah, I've intentionally changed the delivery style. How I did it was by making dot points. And I'm going to continue doing that moving forward. trying to be a bit more engaging, a little bit more dynamic in the way I speak and narrate my YouTube videos. Sorry, to Zeno's point about the video quality is better. I appreciate that. Yeah, I try and make some stuff better every video. Like I have a little list of like my AAR points, which is like my takeaways from the editing process. And I'm like, hey, this thing you did work to do that again. So yeah, I'm trying to get a little bit better every video. Speaking to that, these 2 points here. First one from MattVin2503. Using the live in-game footage for terrain analysis is cool as fuck. The perks of reviewing a video game scenario in full effect. Yeah, and so that was, I think he's referring to like the UAV shot I did of the flying over the dam, which, yeah, I thought that was cool too. I was like, how can I do the terrain analysis in a kind of engaging way? And yeah, I had the kind of thought to like, why don't I just fly around above the dam and then all the overlays, like the crosshairs or the reticles and that sort of stuff, that's all done in, that's just like a static PNG image with a transparent background that I then just overlaid onto the video. And then yeah, you add some sound effects and bing bang bosh, you've got a somewhat more engaging way to deliver the terrain. And certainly, yeah, you can only do that when doing games for these videos, and probably only games as modular and moddable as Fallout 3, which is disappointing because, you know, imagine if you could do the stuff you can do in the Fallout 3 New Vegas console commands. Imagine if you could do that in, say, Call of Duty Warzone. Like have that engine, that graphical fidelity, all those resources and assets, but you could do all that same stuff. Like you'd be able to make movies pretty much. It'd be sick. But yeah, modern games are obviously far more restrictive in what they let you do. The next comment here from Isometrics116. I'm not sure if it can be done, but this episode would be amazing for a Door Kickers 2 map series of maps. I'd love to see it play out as that simulation. Yeah, I spoke to this in one of the members' planning rooms as well, because one of those guys mentioned that it was, I was showing them kind of behind the scenes what I was working on. And they mentioned that it reminded them of Door Kickers. And that was sort of one of the inspirations for the indoor scenes as well. I've never played Door Kickers, but, you know, I've watched enough videos and seen enough clips to get the core concept of it. And I even toyed with the idea. I was like, can I make a custom Door Kickers map of this and then have it play out using the Door Kickers assets? Because one of the factions in that is the Rangers. So I was like, this is perfect. I'm just going to be able to do it in Door Kickers. But after looking into it, I realized it was probably a bit above my pay grade. And yeah, it just wasn't going to be viable. It's one of these things where if I just had unlimited time and I could just take 6 months to make a video, I probably would do stuff like that. But you know, perfect videos take perfect time, and eventually I've got to get something out the gate. All right, I'm gonna go back and check some comments real quick. Oh, my throat. Helios Drive. Thank you for the 5 Aussie schmackos. My goodness. Mass Effect Legendary Edition compilation release remastered the original trilogy right now. Right. RNIYW right now if you want. Thanks for educating my old bum. Codices equals plural form of codex. Thanks, mate. I needed that English lesson. Yeah, look, not against Mass Effect. I'll just have to get my tits into it and figure out what's going to be good in terms of what I can translate to a video. Okay, Bob, would you react to the anime gate? Anime gate? JSDF versus Knights. Boys, I've got to confess something to you. I'd never heard of gate. Swear on my mother's life. Until I made the Helm's Deep video. And now I am so sick of gate that I never want to go near it. Because the amount of comments, if I pulled up like the Helm's Deep video and typed like comment search by the word gate, it would be in the thousands. I'd never heard of gate. And then it was just like varying degrees of comments to like, this is just a rip-off of gate. Or like, oh wow, this is similar to gate. Or like, hey man, this is like any variation of the phrase, this is similar to gate. To the point where I now resent gate, despite never having seen it, because of that Helm's Deep video. So, I don't know. Would I react to it? I don't know, man. I've not done a reaction video yet. I don't have any plans to start doing reaction videos. I don't know. Maybe someday, if there comes a day that I do reaction videos, come back and quote me on this. And yeah, gate will probably be up there. What else we got? Another comment from Kingdom of Vinland. I'd love to see breakdowns of BSG ground combat. That's a Battlestar Galactica. I remember that. There's plenty of breakdowns of BSG space combat, but not any of the ground battles. Not any on the ground battles, but not. Yeah, that's fair. I like that idea you mentioned before about the little dude doing the SMEAC and that sort of thing. Also think it'd be cool if you did break down the ground battle of Endor. Yes, that's on the list as well. Good. Gate is trash. Anime Gate is Fantasy World. Gatekeeping the Gate. I think Gate is good. Note, Gate is just Japanese power trip with a little bit of politics. Yeah, like I said, I've never watched it. I've just had people screaming at me about it in the comments of the Helm's Deep video in particular. Okay, moving on. Loved the intro for the Battle Sim. Was that a reference to those vids by Buster Smoke? I have seen the Buster Smoke vid. He's talking about, it's a mashup of the True Detective intro made in the Fallout New Vegas style. Very cool. He uses the song from True Detective, which I would have loved to, but, you know, copyright and all that, I did not. It was a bit different. It was, yeah, similar inspiration, right? Like his is a Fallout New Vegas done to True Detective. I did Fallout New Vegas to True Detective. I think stylistically, though, he was using the art of, I can't remember his name. Someone should look it up and credit him in the comments. The guy who does like the static, the 2D art, like he does prints and stuff you can buy. And that was what he was using in his video for that unique style. Whereas I was going mostly in-game assets. And I tried to, which Buster Smoke's video didn't exactly, not to say it's bad, it's much better than mine on a technical editing level. I tried to mirror shot for shot the True Detective intro. So on the screen there, you can see like that's the opening scene of True Detective. And on the right there, that's the one I had. So I got like that view of Vegas in the background for the towers. And I couldn't get a road that faced it, so I had to use the train tracks, that sort of stuff instead. And that was kind of just like an editing challenge to myself, as well as making a little sizzler reel intro for the simulation. And the guitar work there I had made by a bloke I know, a very talented guitar man called Caleb Deeble. He's another ex-Aussie Army sniper chap, man guy, but also a very talented, tormented musician. So yeah, he made me that cool like Western guitar strummy bit. Moving on. Oof 480 says, how do you make your simulation animations? Is it a specific tactical mapping software or is it just basic animation and I'm stupid? I don't think you're stupid, oof. To which I replied PowerPoint. And adding on to this, Simon Landmine says, did you use Dungeon Craft to make the map of the location? No, not Dungeon Craft. Animations is done in PowerPoint, like what you're just looking at here. I have just like effects, like those little traces are rectangles, tiny little lines in PowerPoint. And then you have the animation pane and you set them to time, you set them to fade, you add a bunch of effects, this sort of stuff. And the grenades, that's a bunch of like circles. And there's a smoke puff in there, which you set to appear and fade away. So yeah, long story short, I use PowerPoint for the animations. Is it the best thing to do? No, PowerPoint sucks for animating, but it's the only thing I know. If you guys see a massive jump up in animation quality someday, it's probably because I've finally learned how to use After Effects or some actual credible animation software. But yeah, boys, I'm a boomer, so PowerPoint is all I know. As a lot of military dudes, death by PowerPoint. So yeah, I figured I'd stick with that and just kind of use this for the animations. Okay. Next up is the mapping. So it's a little secret on this one too. I've told the members before about this, my dirty little secret in the members live streams. But my wife helps me with a lot of these. She's very talented in this stuff: graphic design, layouts, mapping. Anything that you see like this, she pretty much helps me with. And it goes through a bunch of different processes before we get the end result. So in this case, trying to do the officers. The first thing we did was sketch the game map, which you can see up here on the top left. And it turned out looking like this. And I couldn't fathom what was happening here. But then it turns out in the game map, it's 2 floors here that they combine into one. So this looked like shit. And I realized I couldn't make this work and this wasn't going to work at all. So then I went and hand drew this in the game. And what I mean by hand drawn is that I was in the offices in Fallout New Vegas and I was like, okay, left turn, 10 paces forwards. And then I drew a line here. Oh no, you can't see my cursor because it's black. The bottom left one is what I'm looking at. I drew a line in MS PowerPoint. So this was like just a sketch in not PowerPoint. In Paint, the bottom left one is just a Paint sketch. Then that gets put into Incarnate, which is similar to Dungeon Crafted, which is the other bloke mentioned, but it's mostly Photoshop. And then depending what's going on in the video or the simulation, you need different variations of maps, right? So these indoor ones, we had to make lights on, we had to make lights off for when the Rangers kill the power, and then one with the door and one without the door from when the Ranger breaches blow open the door and get into the control room. But yeah, the breakdown is it's about 20% AutoCAD, which is like architectural planning software. Again, I don't understand it. My wife helps me with this, luckily. And then 50% Photoshop, 30% Incarnate. I know there's probably some people glazing over in the chat or watching this video right now who don't care about the technical stuff, but for those who do, and there's some of you asking in pretty much every video, yeah, I hope you find this interesting, seeing what goes on behind the scenes. And with the outdoor maps, it's a similar thing. In this case, we start with the game screenshot. The bloody old ball and chain makes contours out of that, pretty much draws a map using what we can see from the terrain features in the game. And you know, this is where I have weight, well, not way in, but I'm chipping in here and I'm like, hey, make that bloody hill bigger, make that hill smaller. They need to be two like sniper hills. So yeah, she does this first, gets the contour and the terrain down, and then we can kind of layer it and make it colored for the battle map, or sorry, the planning map. And then finally you can render it. She renders it, I think in Photoshop was how she made this one. Like copy pasting and stamping in, you know, rock asset layers and all this sort of stuff, and lighting and this sort of kit. This one's wrong. This was like just a random spot where the lighting was. And I think some of the Photoshop's AI generative stuff, like I think that's how you get the water, for example. Like, you know, you can click in Photoshop, like make this thing, or you circle like the area you want. You go make this water at night. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. Comes from the game, AutoCAD, more AutoCAD, and then Photoshop is the final one. I think that's about it, boys. Thank you for jumping on. We had a bloody big stream this time. Let me check. We got 82. This might be the biggest stream I've had, barring like maybe the first one I ever did, which had a spike of I think 100 or so. But thanks, blokes, for jumping on. Oh, let me scroll back up real quick, see if I missed any other donos or key comments. Asazim says woof woof. Oh, that's that other bloke's name was woof woof. Honestly, Jason, a tutorial on how to do those effects would be awesome. Would give me some resources to work with in making stuff for my fictional stuff. Yeah, I don't mind. Like, you know, I don't think I've got any crazy trade secrets here in animating. Like I said, I'm using PowerPoint. I'm far from bloody professional, or I'm not working on cutting edge stuff. So yeah, if there was enough interest for it, Jace, I'd probably, yeah, I don't know, sure I'd do it in a stream maybe. Like a behind the scenes making of stream. I might do that someday. And then that video would be there forever for anyone who wanted to see it. So yeah, I guess I would when I can slot it in. Alex says PowerPoint and its consequences have been disastrous for Western militaries. Real. Captain Pipsqueak says, has CSRC given us preferred method of suggesting new versus videos? I can't remember. Honestly, I think the ones that probably catch my eye the most is here in the live streams. They jump out at me, like the comment sections on videos. There's a lot of comments on the videos, and the comments I see is when I have like the phone app. There's a YouTube Studio thing, and it only shows like 3 at a time. So I'm not sitting there like scrolling through all the comments every day. I'll see if I happen to just look at the Studio thing, I'll catch them. Sometimes not. So yeah, chuck out suggestions. The best suggestions is here in the live streams. That's the ones that most likely make it to my eyeballs. Helios Drive. Bloody 5 schmackos again. Thanks, mate. I'm going to be eating good because of you. I'm getting KFC. Fair cop. The most suitable battle I think you could make a vid of is the Vermeer raid. The collector base assault was second beside the Seeker swarms. Roger. So yeah, I'd have to look back into these because it's been a long time since I watched it. But again, as long as I can present it on a map, which from memory it's very small, like squad level tactical stuff, I certainly think we can. Cheers, boys. I'm going to wrap it up. Just flicking through these comments here real quick. Saint Unisan, welcome back, my bloody loyalist. Vid was sick, can't wait for the next one. Thank you, appreciate you. That must have took so long. Yeah, the maps take a while, mate. A lot of the resources, the stuff, that's what bogs down making these videos. I can edit the thing in about a week, but yeah, most of the time, honestly, is spent on the script, the research, and then some of these assets like the maps and the things specific to the battle. So yeah, it takes a while. Well, so Phil H, great stuff. Cheers, mate. No, thank you. Just some random Brit. I have an idea that you could do for tactical analysis series. However, it really depends on if you have any knowledge on the series. Yeah, honestly, it does. Like I'd prefer to do things that I know. I think it's more authentic as well. Like I would still do things that I would research that I don't know, or like say haven't played. But I'd like to at the very least like play the game once. Like I don't just want to half-ass it. You know what I mean? So yeah, preferably if I know it. Jaden, good day. I love the video, and we'll be seeing more Ranger-related content. Honestly, not for a while now. I've just used the Rangers, so I'm probably not going to use them again for a while. This video annoyed me for a week, but now I understand your choices. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, on that note, look, I'm genuinely not trying to like annoy or like tilt, say, NCR fans or Fallout New Vegas fans. Like when I'm making this, so you know where my head's at, and I said it before, but like I'm genuinely trying to like give them their best capabilities and let them put their best foot forward. Like I'm not thinking like, oh, I'm gonna nerf the piss out of them so they get smoked. Like it's not what's going through my mind when I do this. Like I'm genuinely looking at like doing NCR research and I'm going, oh, they've got vertibirds, they've got an anti-aircraft cannon, oh man, they've got like all these guns. I'm thinking about it in that way. So I don't know. I hope that is cold comfort for some of the guys who are staunch NCR supporters that might have felt like slighted by this video. But that's how I'm going about it. Like I'm not intentionally trying to trigger people or make like clickbaity controversial outcomes because I know it'll annoy people and lead to controversy in the comments. Yeah, I'm trying to give them their fair crack in terms of what they have and what they don't have. But Gamer Guy, you may be interested in the Coalition in Vampire the Masquerade. Basically, the major world intelligence services come together to hunt vampires and bullshit a bunch with conventional weapons. That sounds fun. Pie time, bye. Catch a mate, bye. Bob, thank you for the Aussie 2 schmackos. Awesome that you used PowerPoint, impressive PP use. Oh, you bloody. Bet you'd like to know all about impressive PP use, wouldn't you, Bob? Nah, kidding. Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate the 2 schmackos and the comment. Wasn't Hoover Dam based on a real location? Aren't there real maps for it, or am I stupid? Yeah, I've been to the bloody real Hoover Dam. It's just outside Las Vegas. I went there as a tourist. I wasn't raiding it. But yeah, it's very much a real location, but you know, I don't just want to plug in a Google Maps screenshot. Like I want to have it fit the aesthetic of what I'm going for. So that's why on the screen there, the one in the background, that's meant to look like a military-ish map. In this case, it's weathered and old and going for like that aesthetic. And the battle sim, you know, I want it to look gamified. So I have it be that rendered kind of cartoonish almost look. But yeah, in this case, I could have used just a Google Maps screenshot, but I think it's kind of gammon, just like it's a bit light work, you know what I mean? I explained before that it's hard to differentiate lore and gameplay. Yeah, I agree. Just some random breed. Are you at least aware of Team Fortress 2, CSRC? I bloody am. I used to play the arse out of TF2. I'm talking a while back, before hats. Because then the next thing I knew, I was like, I think about to start playing again or looking into it, and everyone was talking about hats. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? But I was keen on TF2 a while back. So I'd say I'm familiar enough with it that I could potentially make a video on it. Very tired man. Do you wargame the scenarios with someone playing the opposition? No, I don't. Mostly because I'm making these in isolation. But what I do now that's about as close to wargaming as I can is when I do the live streams with the members. These guys throw in some really good feedback that get me thinking about stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise maybe thought about. So shout out to all the guys who are members and come along in those planning streams, because that's about as close to wargaming as I get. And that's been very, very helpful. The example I'd give in this one was the anti-aircraft gun. That was something that, like, yes, I was, of course, in the early stages of the planning it out. Like, it was there, I knew about it, but I hadn't thought about it in detail yet. And then, yes, a bunch of the guys talking about, like, hey, man, that thing could just, like, smash your SPF position. I was like, yeah, true. Let's not let that thing survive past the first point of contact. So, no, I don't do wargaming. But, yes, the members are now being very helpful in getting somewhat close to wargaming, or at least providing alternate views, right? Saint Unisan, bloody thank you for the Aussie 50 schmackos, legend. Won a bit of money betting on Broncos, so have a beer on me. Thanks, Dig, much appreciated. Good for you, bloody ripper. Kennedy the V, TF2 Red Team versus Marine Squadron LMAO. To fight your enemy, you must know your enemy. Bloody Sun Tzu said that. Yep, you certainly must. The more I think about it, the more I think it would actually be pretty fun. So I'm going to suggest defending the Slide 7 from the first episode of Gundam, says the Derp. Gundam, not familiar with. A couple more comments, guys, and I'm going to wrap it up. Corporate Gundam. Was this someone else talking about Gundam? Would you consider Battles from Gundam? Gundam, I don't know, boys. I'd have to get stuck into it. Random Brit. So you could maybe do a tactical analysis vid on Team Fortress 2 Man vs Machine on maybe all of the maps. I'd have to look in. I don't know what Man vs Machine is. I don't know what that is. Like I said, I played TF2 a long time ago, but I like the idea of TF2 because I know the map work would be easy. So like I said, that's kind of my key things. Can I put it on a 2D presentation? And TF2 I can. Captain Picksweek, thank you for the Aussie $10. If I may be so bold as to suggest the Siege of Kugain Castle from the Final Fantasy XIV, appreciate the 10 schmackos. The protagonists flood the castle to force a partial evacuation, so it might be fun to involve a unit like the SEALs. It sounds apt. Yeah, again, I'm going to make a list here, boys, in the chat. Thank you for the suggestion. I'm going to write them down here so I can come back to it later. At least I'm going to write Gundam, FF14. I know that acronym. FF14 Kugain Castle. I don't know. And what else did we have suggestions? I'm making a notepad here, boys. Throw it at me. Just joined the live stream and wanted to say, love the vids when they come out. Cheers. The Helm's Deep and Starship Troopers was great. Thank you, Callum. You're a ledge. Man vs. Machine is a PvE game mode for TF2 where you fight money-powered robots trying to nuke a hole. Okay. I'm going to put that on the list. TF2 Man v Machines. Who would you want to replace, though? Would you want to replace the robots or the, like, TF2 team? I assume you'd want to replace the TF2 team with a modern or a real military unit. Considered Attack on Titan. I have not. I'm going to put it in here, though. Attack on... That's them big mouth giant dudes and they just eat people and shit. Attack on Titan. Would be interesting to see your take on a successful version of the Rock movie instead of the SEALs getting immediately gunned down by the Marines. Yeah, I'd consider that too, but it's one of those ones where it's not changing a whole lot because I don't think, changing the units would do much. Like, you'd probably just replay it with the SEALs, but just do a different plan or have more SEALs so it goes effective and not, sneaking through a sewer that's rigged with booby traps. So I don't think it's not changing enough, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. Monolith from Stalker. Is that a war? Oh, Monolith. Oh, I remember them motherfuckers from that Stalker game. I don't remember there being a battle though. Hell, I'll add it to the list. Stalker. Mass Effect. Okay. Which battle from Mass Effect? What's it called? Oh, and what was the other one? Oh, yep. Mass Effect. Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3, one word. Far Cry 3, Mass Effect. And Battlestar Galactica. I'm just going to write BSG. Cringe. Junior Officer. Map. Raid, I'll call it. There we go. I'm putting that comment in the chat so I can... Oh, I'm retarded. I was typing it in the emoji box instead of the chat box. Here we go. Maybe I can pin this or something so I can find it later. There you go. I'm going to pin this message so then I can come back to it later. Local WOG. What a username. Oh, man. My ethnics in the chat. Halo Reach Bro, Sword Base. Sean Millisits. What about how many modern troops could defend the attack in 300, the Sparta one? Yeah, 300's on the list, honestly, because it's probably going to be a pretty easy video for me to make. So yeah, 300 is on my list already. As is, to answer your comment, Breakfire 78, Thermopylae with modern forces, defending the pass. Yep, it's on the list. Have an emoji here, boys. I like that bloke's face. It makes me laugh. And I'm going to send it, boys. Oh, sorry, was there another dono I just missed? No, last dono was Captain Pipsqueak talking about Final Fantasy. No, I missed one, sorry. Ian K. Anderson, Ron25. Thank you for the Ron25. Recommend the Warthog attack battle in Halo Reach was so dumb. Would love to see a striker attack instead. Yeah, Warthogs are they're buggy things, huh? I'm going to put Halo, Dry Reach, Warthog battle. That's in the chat too. Boys, I've got a boogie. There's bloody baby going nuts in the background. Thank you everyone who donated. Thank you everyone who jumped in. This has been a great one. Super appreciate everyone who participated. Had a lot of fun. I got some chuckles out of it, which is cool. And yeah, let's do it again, boys. Coming up next, I've got a tactically speaking video, which is a shorter one. Honestly, it's going to be a couple of weeks off, but that's because I'm doing a bit of travel, going to a mate's wedding. So I've got a bit of a busy week and a half coming up, but then I'm going to get back and crack into the next tactically speaking. And what I'm doing for that one, in case you're curious, I'm going to do like a deep dive. If you remember the Matrix video, Same style in terms of structure, but I'm doing Gemini Man, that absurd Will Smith Assassin Man movie where he snipes the bloke on the train, and I'm pretty much going to do a like a plausible, like, is it realistic? We know the answer is no, but why is it not realistic? And go through by the numbers, like planning it as if I was going to take that shot. How would I do it, and what would I need to know? And yeah, hopefully it doesn't get on a bloody CIA watch list or something. But that's it. Thanks, boys. Appreciate everyone. Jump on the members planning sessions. I'll be doing them as well when I get back from my said trip. They're going to be going down every Sunday. That's when I do the members live streams where we plan the videos and you get some more behind the scenes stuff. And thank you all. Appreciate you all. And hail Caesar.